Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really big and honestly pretty persistent question. Why is it that in a world with so much wealth, there's still so much poverty? We're going to explore a powerful and definitely controversial idea that tries to answer that, known as the dependency theory of underdevelopment.
So let's just get right to it with that fundamental question. It's a puzzle that has kept economists and world leaders busy for decades. I mean, why does it seem like some countries are holding all the cards while others are just struggling to stay in the game? Well, dependency theory offers a pretty provocative and, for some, a challenging explanation. Okay, so let's dive into what this is all about. What is dependency theory? Well, it came from a group of Latin American economists, and it puts forward this pretty radical idea that the poverty of some nations isn't just an accident, or because of their own internal problems. No. It suggests it's a direct result of their relationship with the world's richer countries. At its heart is this concept, which Theodorion dos Santos defined pretty clearly. He said dependency is when the economies of poorer countries are basically shaped and controlled by the economies of the richer, dominant ones. To put it simply, their economic fate isn't really in their own hands.
So, how does this theory actually see the world? Well, it kind of splits the global economy into two very different but connected parts. Let's take a look at how that model works.
The world, according to this theory, is split between the center, so the dominant industrialized nations like the US and Western Europe, and the periphery, which is the less developed nations in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Now, the center, it grows on its own terms, but the periphery's growth, that's just a reflection of what the center needs. And here's the crucial part. The theory argues that the center's development actually creates the periphery's underdevelopment.
To help you picture this, theorists use this analogy of a metropolis and its satellites. It's like a planet's gravity pulling in its moons. The economic surplus, all that wealth and all those resources, from the satellite nations is constantly being pulled away, drawn towards the metropolis countries.
And this leads to a really chilling idea from the theorist Andre Gunder Frank. He called it the development of underdevelopment. It's a powerful phrase, right? It's suggesting that the wealth of the center and the poverty of the periphery aren't two separate things. Nope, they are two sides of the exact same coin, locked together in one big, unequal global system.
So the big question is, how does this system of dependency actually work day to day? I mean, what are the real mechanisms that keep this whole unequal structure going? Let's break down how it all functions.
According to the theory, this whole relationship is held in place by three main channels. You've got foreign capital, technological dependence, and something called unequal trade. Let's look at each of these one by one. Okay, first up, foreign capital. This often shows up looking like a helping hand, foreign aid, big loans, investments. But according to the theory, this capital ends up creating crippling debt. Wealth is then just systematically siphoned from the periphery back to the center through never-ending interest payments and profits, all while forcing development projects that really serve foreign interests, not what the local people actually need.
Second is technological dependence. So when multinational corporations bring in new technology, it's often what we call capital intensive. That just means it's built for automation, requires a ton of money, and doesn't need a lot of workers. In countries with tons of available labor, this can actually make unemployment worse, drive up the gap between the rich and poor, and really mess with the local political scene.
And third, we have unequal trade. See, periphery nations often get stuck producing raw materials and agricultural goods, things whose prices go up and down like a yo-yo on the world market. Meanwhile, the center countries get to sell their finished, manufactured goods at high, stable prices. This imbalance creates what's known as unequal exchange. It's like a trading game that the periphery is basically set up to lose.
But is this theory the whole story? Of course not. Like any really big idea, dependency theory has gotten a lot of pushback and criticism over the years. So let's be fair and look at the main arguments against it.
Critics will tell you that the theory puts way too much blame on the outside world. It kind of ignores internal issues in developing countries, like corruption or political chaos. They also point to economic powerhouses like Shanghai and Hong Kong as proof that, hey, capitalism and foreign investment can lead to incredible development. On top of that, critics say the whole idea of dependence is just too vague and hard to actually measure. So after hearing both sides, where do we land? Well, this theory, whether you agree with it or not, it really forces us to think about a very deep and important debate about how the global economy is wired. At the end of the day, the fundamental debate boils down to this.
Is underdevelopment just a temporary phase? You know, a stage that every nation has to go through on its way to becoming modern? Or, as dependency theory argues, is it a permanent condition, something that is actively created and kept in place by the very way the global system works?
And this leaves us with one last really provocative question that policymakers are still wrestling with today. To get real development, should nations dive in even deeper with the global economy, hoping they can catch up? Or should they try to de-link from this unequal system and go down a path of more self-reliance? The answer to that could literally shape the future of our world. It's definitely something to think about.